Auzubillahiminashaitanirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Third and final part of controversies regarding Khidr al-Islam, facts and fiction. Khidr al-Islam in Iran, Persia. In Iranian religions preceding the Zoroastrian religion, there used to be a lot of goddesses and gods. And one of those goddesses was a goddess known by the name of Anahita, which in Persian language is also rendered as Nahid, a very popular name among the Persian-speaking communities and the subcontinent for a female. So this female goddess was the goddess of water and greenery. After they converted to Zoroastrianism, she got incorporated into the Zoroastrian religion to some extent and became quite popular among them. And wherever her temples were, they became sites to visit and they became sites for pilgrimage. Now, in Iran, the term for pilgrimage is pir, P-I-R, pir, which by the time it reached the continent became the term for a saint. But originally the term pir means just a pilgrimage. And there are 6 sacred sites of pilgrimage in the Zoroastrian religion, and one of them is known as Pir-e-Sabz, which is the pilgrimage to the green site. And there's a temple of Pir-e-Sabz where people go for pilgrimage, and the Zoroastrians still go and they perform pilgrimage there. Now, Khidr al-Islam started to be associated with water and greenery because the name in Hadith is Khidr, green, so it got associated with greenery and with the Pir-e-Sabz. And very soon, all these temples and sites where there were streams coming from the ground, water abundantly available, greenery in the mid of the desert, and they were dedicated to Anahita, the goddess of greenery and water, they became sites dedicated to Khidr al-Islam, and they became a site of veneration. Moving on to the subcontinent, this thing became really big. Khidr al-Islam is really big in the subcontinent. In fact, I think nowhere in the Muslim world is he venerated as much and talked about as much as it is in the subcontinent. The Indian subcontinent is known as the Indian subcontinent due to the river Indus. River Indus is the backbone of India. In fact, what is India today is not India. India referred to the area which is Pakistan today, named after the river Indus. What is called India today was known as Bharat. So Bharat was different from India. And when they made the Grand Bharat, they occupied India too, and then they called it the Indian subcontinent. When in 1947 the two countries were created, Pakistan and India, the creator of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he strongly objected to Bharat using the name India, and he said, you cannot call yourself India because the Indus doesn't flow there. Indus is in Pakistan and you cannot steal this name. But much to his objection, nobody paid any heed, and India insisted on calling itself India. Now, for the region of Pakistan, Indus is a major river. You can understand this when I say that all the water streams and rivers that originate in Pakistan from the mountains, they end up in the Indus. That is why Indus is known as the Abbasin, the father of the rivers. So wherever there is water coming out in Pakistan, it is eventually draining into the Indus River. So Indus River was also a sacred river. And this river had its own sacred saint. And this saint kept everyone safe, especially travelers. People used to travel along rivers and streams, or they used to travel down the river Indus. It's not like today. There were not many roads, and there were definitely no train tracks and no air travel. So river Indus was a major source of travel. And the saint of the river Indus was known as Jhulelal. Actually, originally, his name was Udairulal, and it says that when he was a baby, he used to swing his own cradle. You know, sometimes babies do that. If they're lying in a cradle, they just rock themselves to sleep. So he became known as Jhulelal because he was really good at rocking himself to sleep. And he is the most revered deity of the Sindhi Hindus, Ishtadev, they call it. So Julelal was extremely, extremely revered and respected. And he's represented as a man with a flowing white beard sitting on a lotus flower, or sometimes sitting on a palla fish, which is a local fish from the Indus River. And he helps people cross the river, keeps them protected. Even if ships are sinking, he brings them up to surface, rescues them. And he has an army at his disposal. Whenever he wants, he brings the army out of the river. Whenever he wants, he takes it back into the river. So when Islam came to Sindh and the Sindhis started to accept Islam, they were very reluctant to let go of Julelal, because Julelal was a very positive figure which gave them a lot of confidence, especially during travels. So over time, because he's got a white beard and wears green clothes, Julelal started to be renamed as Khwaja Khidr, and they especially use the name Khwaja for him. So he became the patron saint for the river, because they needed a patron saint. Everyone had a patron saint everywhere, like St. George was needed in Europe, and even today in England, St. George is a patron saint. The area around the Indus got Khwaja Khidr as their patron saint. It went to such a limit that the principal shrine of Julelal, which is on an island near Bhakkar in the Indus River, that started to get contested between Muslims and Hindus. And wherever there are shrines of Julelal in Sindh or Punjab along the Indus River, there's a big contention. The Muslims say they belong to Khwaja Khidr, and the Hindus say no, they belong to Julelal. And Julelal also disappeared, according to Hindu legend. He was never seen again. And Khwaja Khidr is considered to be immortal. He disappears and appears again. And there are sightings of Khwaja Khidr everywhere. And interestingly, the sightings are always along water streams, because it's an old concept going on among the people in the subcontinent, that he is the guardian, spiritual guardian and patron saint of the water, flowing water, and Indus and its tributaries. So you would not see Khwaja Khidr guiding people in the desert. He would always be guiding people along the rivers or wells or springs. And here his character is very much similar to Saint Christopher. Now, people would say it's very primitive, that people still need a protective saint, a patron saint for travel. But the insecurity of travel is so high that even today in the European countries, especially in England, although the patron saint is St. George, many people have lockets in their around their neck which has St. Christopher on it. Now, St. Christopher is considered to be a giant who helped baby Christ cross the river. It's a long story, cut it short. Think of him as a giant who helped baby Christ cross a river. And among my patients, I see this. People come and they have St. Christopher's amulet around their neck. And I can easily guess either this person is professionally traveling, like he's a truck driver, a long haul driver, or travels a lot for leisure or business. And when I ask them, it's always true. They're doing a lot of traveling. And they feel so insecure in traveling, just like our people put a taweez or something around their neck, that they put this amulet of St. Christopher, even in this day and age, and very popular and very common. So the insecurity with travel, especially near water, and the fear of drowning in the river, that created Khwaja Khidr's character to replace the Julelal, which was a Hindu patron saint for protection for the river Indus. Now, last and not the least, we've talked about Khidr Islam, what he is. We talked about the characters associated with him. We even talked about the times when people have denied that he exists just to please the Western scholars, which is very wrong. The important thing we need to know is that people have associated these myths and legends with characters due to insecurities or due to personal reasons. In both cases, either they were afraid and they needed a patron saint, or they were afraid to let go of the patron saints or the supernatural characters they were already venerating, or they were afraid that people would mock their religion. Islam would be mocked and criticized, and to avoid that criticism and mocking, they tried to associate all the kind of fiction and controversies which we now see with Khidr Islam. So it's important to know what is true and what is added later on. And we do not need to start rows, we do not need to start debates with people. Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, whenever you are preaching your religion and talking to other people, find the common grounds. Talk about the common grounds first. And try to avoid criticizing other people and their religion, even their gods. Don't say bad words and don't use abusive words for their gods. So even among the Muslim community, like we have different sects who venerate Khidr Islam, it would be very counterproductive to make fun of them, very counterproductive to abuse their practices of venerating Khidr Islam, whether it's Khaja Khidr or whether it's Khidr Islam, the dragon slayer. We have to understand the story and the myth and the logic behind it. And if ever we get a chance to do tabligh and talk about this topic, we have to make sure that we bring about the facts and try to avoid the myth and the legend and avoid mixing it. Once again, I would stress on it that initially the myths and legends are very colorful and attractive and bring people towards Islam. Khwaja Khidr's stories are so beautiful and so beautifully crafted that people would flock to Islam and listen to the stories and read the Surah Al Kahf and be interested in Islam. But as soon as they find out that these are stories borrowed from other religions and these stories cannot be verified and these stories are all myths and legends, they think the whole of the Islam is a myth and a legend. And they are disillusioned and they go away from the religion. And this is not just for non-Muslims. This can happen in your house and my house. Our children, if they grow up listening to the myths and legends and believing they're true, one day they'll find out that these stories are borrowed from other religions, and then they will say, our whole religion is like this, which is not right. So we have to differentiate between the truth and between the fiction, the fact and the fiction. We have to clearly make a distinction between that. Inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we will be going to the next ayah in Surah Al Kahf, and we'll talk about another character, a very famous and interesting character, again surrounded by controversies, which is Zulkarnain. And inshallah, over the next few days, bi'iznillah, we will be having an in-depth study of the story of Zulkarnain and Yajuj and Majuj in the Quran and with the help of the Hadith. Jazakallah khair. Please remember everyone in your prayers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A special thank you for everyone who made this effort possible, especially our IT team. Last but not the least, a big thank you and special prayers for the person who started this dawah effort with me but prefers to stay anonymous at present. Please remember us all in your prayers. May Allah reward everyone who's involved in this dawah effort, especially the people who are watching it and listening to it. May Allah reward them in this life and the hereafter. Ameen summa ameen.